Good afternoon, Facebook followers. I'm Brian Whitaker here with St. Clair County Emergency Management. I'm joined by Director Herb Simmons. Director, we've had a lot of requests coming in as to the flooding of July 26th. What has happened? What is happening? What steps are we taking next?
Well, and as you just said, we've been receiving a lot of calls here at the EMA office over the last month. You know, there was flooding impact. It impacted several communities throughout St. Clair County. In fact, 12 of them to be exact that was documented. And so with all the calls that was coming in, we thought it was best to kind of bring people up to speed on where we are. I think everybody knows of the flooding event that took place. You know, quite a few people were impacted. It was had to be relocated. And so why don't you explain to them what was all taking place?
Okay. So kind of working now backwards, what has just happened is we completed a preliminary damage assessment with our partners at Illinois Emergency Management and the Federal Emergency Management Agency of FEMA, and we have submitted a request for a presidential disaster declaration for the state of Illinois, which in doing that, if approved, would open up financial assistance for the residents of our county that were impacted by the flood. A lot of other things have happened that led up to that point. There has been surveys done by the Federal Small Business Administration who came in and surveyed flood damage in our county with the possibility of bringing low-interest federal loans to assist residents and businesses that needed financial assistance related to the damage and the repairs of any type of uninsured loss related to the flood. And that program is pending. It's on hold right now until we determine if FEMA is going to be able to step in with the individual assistance program. And probably one of the big things, one of the questions that we get asked all the time is, you know, how is it that just right across the river in St. Louis City and St. Louis County, do they have a federal disaster declaration, but one has not been approved here yet?
Well, and that's the thing that prompted us to continue to go out there because, you know, the United Way was our depository for people who were impacted to call and list their address that had suffered flooding from the storms. So once that information was collected, you know, the Red Cross went out and did a survey. As you said, the Small Business Administration come in and did that. And then we were able to convince FEMA to come in and try to apply for this federal declaration. There was 784 properties that we went out and went door to door for 2.5 days, almost 3 days. And while we were out there, if there was one house on that block, you know, we checked with the other ones, we checked with neighbors, if residents wasn't home, if they'd been displaced. So all that information was compiled, and that's what we have submitted to, as Brian said. IEMA has submitted, and we just received notification last night that letter was received from the governor's office by FEMA, and they have up to 30 days to make a determination. We have our fingers crossed that we will hear something sooner than that. You're right, the same storm cell that affected to Missouri right across the river impacted us. So, you know, as I told IEMA and everybody else that we have talked to, that we're just wanting our residents throughout our county, because it wasn't just a few communities. You know, we had properties in Mascoutah, Lebanon, Swansea, Belleville, Caseyville, East St. Louis, Washington Park, that all suffered damages from this flooding.
One of the big questions we get a lot, and we still get phone calls every day in the office, of residents that say, I wasn't one of the homes that you evaluated, but I have damage. Am I excluded? So, and it's important that message gets out. Absolutely not. When we come in and do a preliminary damage assessment with FEMA, we're taking a snapshot of as much damage as we can capture, but that does not mean it's the totality of the damages. If we receive the federal disaster declaration, the entire county will be eligible to request assistance. Now, you will have a process to go through to provide documentation that you were impacted by this particular storm, and these are your damages, and these are your uninsured losses, and then they will work through what the avenues are they can to help assist you. But just because your home was not surveyed does not mean you're excluded.
Right, and you know, and the other thing we wanted to just point out that, two of the hardest hit areas that suffered was the East St. Louis, Cahokia Heights, and then into the Kaysville area. You can see some of the photographs there. We had a nursing home in Kaysville that had to be evacuated, another treatment center there. And I can't say enough about the cooperation that we got from the city leaders of all the communities that was affected. And that's kind of what we do here at EMA is your followers know for 2 years we went through the pandemic. We tried to keep our residents up to date as much as possible. And that's what we're doing today, because we are getting quite a few calls that come in every day from people, and rightly so. I don't blame them. They're wanting to know why it's taking so long. And if I had that $64,000 question, we would give it to them. But we are walking through that process. There are check and balances that we have to do, and that's what we've done. And so we're hopeful after we did that assessment survey, we're hopeful now that FEMA will take our plead that we're doing with them and saying that, hey, our residents here are just as important as what they provided, because Missouri already has got the declaration.
And that's one of the big parts of, when you submit this package requesting federal assistance, you talk about the damages, but you also talk about the impact it's had on the community and any impacts you have into recovery. Does every community, are they able to recover the same? Or are there specific hurdles that you need to overcome? And one of the big topics that we discussed in that was equity. This was the same storm. It was the same dates, the same times. The only thing that separated us was a half mile of the Mississippi River.
Right, and again, if you see the photographs and roads, we had over 90 water rescues that our first responders, and again, our hats are off to them because they were out there rescuing people that were stranded, getting them out of their homes. Some of those homes that we went to had 4 and 5 feet of water in them. The animal control center had to be evacuated. We had to assist in relocating 60 animals that was there. So, this was a major event that took place, and all we're asking for is that the federal government give some consideration to those impacted families, because, like I said, the local communities had to deal with it first, and then, of course, when they exhausted all of their resources that they had, they reached out to our office, and then we reached out right away to IEMA, and that's why they're involved. And I can't thank all those agencies, and then we set up the mark for that entire weekend.
A multi-agency resource center. It was held in East St. Louis at East St. Louis Senior High School. 498 families over 2 days were able to receive assistance there. And the assistance was a wide variety from over 30 different partner agencies, from the American Red Cross to the Salvation Army. We had St. Clair County Intergovernmental Grants, who still today is helping displaced residents with temporary housing or to locate and be able to take possession of new housing. We worked with the Community Lifeline of East St. Louis. We had various organizations that were there with fans and cleaning supplies and buckets and bleach. Southern Baptist, they still have teams in the field today working to help get soiled material out of homes to try and make these homes safer from everybody. The amount of volunteer organizations in the county that come together in a disaster like this is really quite remarkable.
Well, yeah, and not only the professional organizations that you said, the Red Cross, the United Way, all of those that we mentioned, can't speak enough for Mr. Stubblefield and the Intergovernmental Grants Department, still helping people out today. They were there for that entire weekend. The school district, the school superintendent that opened up the schools, we set up the shelter immediately after the crisis. The Red Cross came in and took care of people who were displaced until they were able to find them some temporary shelters. So yes, it was a great operation that took place. We went out there and helped do the evacuation. We had our evacuation bus there that first day. Again, the first responders were out there. Over 90 water rescues is what was that we documented. The good thing about it is, no injuries or loss of life, and that's always a good thing.
Absolutely. Definitely it was a executed event that was tested the experiences and the equipment of everybody involved, but we saw those agencies step up, come from across the county. We had areas of this county that were not impacted, and they were ready and willing to send their resources to help the communities that were most impacted. As you mentioned, it was quite a task to move 85 patients out of a nursing home into a temporary shelter while their staff is working to find other locations to get them in. And it all went smooth, it all went great, and it's because of that cooperation and teamwork of our great first responders here in the county.
Well, and we have a good emergency operation plan here in St. Clair County, as we have talked about and bragged about for many years now. It's just not a book that's on a shelf. We practice it, and unfortunately, over the last couple of years, we've had to use it quite a bit with the pandemic, and now with the flooding, and that's what plans are for. Well planned. When people can come together, when communities can come together across this county, like I said, it wasn't just in one area, it was county-wide spread. And so when you can pick up the phone and you can call the mayors and the chiefs of these communities and our first responders, and everybody is there at the call, and everybody comes together. One question on your guy want to know, are these people related and qualified? I think we're darn well qualified to do what we do, and I think the proof is in the pudding, as my grandmother used to say. And I think if you would ask the mayor of Kaysville and the mayor of East St. Louis and Cahokia Heights, they would tell you that St. Clair County was there on boots on the ground, ready to go, and we're still out there. In fact, there's a meeting tonight that we'll be attending to address any questions that residents have in the East St. Louis area, and that's what we're doing today, addressing the calls that has been coming into our office, letting people know that we don't have all the answers right now. We've done all the homework, we've done all the paperwork that's been required of our office to do, and IEMA, the great partners, the Illinois Emergency Management Agency, the director of the state IEMA. We was on the phone multiple times with her and her staff. Her staff's been here. When we did the federal FEMA disaster teams, there was 5 teams. We were required to have one of our representatives along with the IEMA and a federal FEMA person to go to those doors. So to visit 784 properties in a little under 3 days was a job in itself.
Absolutely. So a lot of the questions we're getting now are, what's next? How do we find out if we're going to be helped, and what are the processes?
Well, and that's what we said at the beginning. The paperwork has been sent off. We received notification late last night that FEMA has received it. They'll be reviewing all the paperwork. The last I saw the draft of it was about a 30-page report that was being sent to them that was signed by the governor. They will go through that. They will match up with what their people who had boots on the ground. They will compare what we sent to them along with some stats and photographs and some drone footage that we were able to take and send to them. And they will do their due diligence to check that all out. And then we will wait to see what their response is, and if the president feels that there was that big of an impact, then we will get notified that there's a declaration being issued. If not, then we'll go back to Plan B, which was the Small Business Administration, and hopefully get them in, which they were planning to do anyway. So, it's just, I know it seems like it's taken a month, and it has, but again, we don't have control of that. All we can do is do the job to get where we are now. So once we get that notification, FEMA has 30 days to make that determination. We're hoping that with all the work that they've seen that we've done with the Red Cross and the United Way and the other damage assessments that was done, that they can make that decision a little bit quicker. Once we get that, we'll be notifying the news media to get the word out to everybody that there would be a declaration, or there won't be, and then we'll continue to go down whatever path that we get led down.
Okay. So great information. We'll bring it here to you, the latest information of everything that comes to us here at St. Clair County Emergency Management Agency. Stay tuned to our Facebook page and our social media for the latest information. As the director said, we will utilize social media, we will utilize the print media, we'll utilize the television news media to get that information to our residents and let you know what assistance is available and how you can apply for it.
Right, and then once the information comes out, whether it be through FEMA or the small business, because if we do get the federal declaration, SBA comes part
Comes
of that
with
package. Yeah, anyway, and then there will be outreach offices that will be set up. We already had that set up with the SBA. They were going to open up hopefully an office in East St. Louis and in Caseyville, where people would be able to go and file their claims and start getting the assistance that they needed. In the meantime, Red Cross has been great. Catholic Urban Charities has been helping people.
And I saw some questions on here today about still somebody has unmet needs. What should they do? They should call 211. Even if you've already reported the damage, call 211 again and tell them what that unmet need is. And they have all of those partner organizations that we talked about that they can try and find someone to assist with that unmet need. There are some things they can't do, but
Right.
they definitely try to get something to help everyone.
Well, and as recently as yesterday, the co-ed that we're working with, you may want to just touch on that a little bit, then moving forward, what we're trying to do.
So working with our partners at the United Way, St. Clair County is moving forward with creating its own, what's called a co-ed, or community organizations active in a disaster. So as we talked about all these partner organizations that come together, rather than them just coming together in a disaster event, we're looking to establish a long-term partnership with these organizations that regardless of a disaster, they can all work together and better understand the availability of the resources that other organizations have and how they can work together. So if the Red Cross gets a call from somebody and they don't have something that can fit their needs, they might know another member of this co-ed that could do it and they could refer them to them. So it's basically a partnership of a lot of volunteer organizations that are available to assist the community at a moment's notice.
Well, and another thing we like to say, it's being proactive rather than reactive, and that's what this is, another step in trying to be proactive, because there's one thing we know, that this isn't going to be the last type of disaster that we have. It's just when it's going to happen, and so the more we can be prepared, sometimes easier it is. So we will keep everybody informed of that when that comes to fruition.
Okay.
Okay?
I think that's all the questions we've got on here so far.
Very good.
Thank you for joining us here for another St. Clair County Emergency Management Briefing, and we'll always be back here with you with the latest information as soon as it becomes available. Thanks for joining us.